So now for more reaction, I do want to bring in Kelly Gordon. She is an assistant professor of political science at McGill University. Her research areas include gender and politics, abortion rights, and reproductive justice. Professor Gordon, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what was your initial reaction to this news about this draft that was leaked regarding the Supreme Court possibly overturning Roe v. Wade based on that leaked draft?
I mean, for starters, it's surprising that a draft was leaked in the first place. But this is also, I think, in line with what's been happening in abortion politics for the last 40 years in the United States. So it's not overly surprising given what's happened at the state level throughout many states in the U.S. and also with the new Supreme Court.
So what could this mean as people continue to try and digest this information? What could this mean in context for Canada's abortion laws?
So I think it's important that Canadians not import what's happening in the United States to the Canadian context. So we have very different histories and laws around abortion care. And so I think we should be concerned about what's happening in the United States and in other countries throughout the world when it comes to abortion access. I don't think we should necessarily, think that that's going to happen here.
So do you think that this may lead to more women from the U.S. heading to Canadian clinics if, in fact, this does follow through and turn into the overturning of that ruling?
I mean, that could happen, but I think if we look at the states that are really going to be impacted by the Supreme Court decision, we're really looking at southern states and Midwestern states. And so it's probably more likely that American women in those states are going to go to other American states where abortion is more accessible. So, just because of sort of the geographical location of where these laws are going to be impacted, I don't think we're going to see kind of an influx of American women coming to Canada.
You were talking about, in terms of the relationship between Canada and the U.S., not necessarily importing was your word, the ideas or the decisions that are made south of us and saying that this is necessarily going to happen here. In terms of support, I'm reading a 2021 poll by the Pew Research Center saying that 59% of U.S. adults believed it should be legal in all or most cases, while 39% thought it should be illegal in most or all cases, talking about abortion here. So what is the support like on this side of the border?
So we have much higher support for legal and accessible abortion care. We also have a different history in terms of kind of our party politics and our legislatures and the anti-abortion movement. So what we saw in the 1980s was really kind of this takeover of the Republican Party by the religious right. And the religious right, especially at the time, was really mobilized around opposing abortion. What we've seen in Canada really since the Morgentaler decision is a real reluctance on the part of politicians and even conservative politicians to bring the abortion issue to the forefront. So what we have is really sort of not only different public opinion, but also a different relationship between kind of party politics, law, and abortion politics.
In terms, though, of the fluidity between ideologies between the two countries, certainly we have seen in some cases views being held by those in Canada who are feeling emboldened because of what you might see south of the border. So to that point, is it possible that it could become less popular or less supported in this country as compared to how it is right now?
So something interesting is some research actually shows that the more that we debate abortion rights in Canada, the more support for abortion rights actually increases. So I think there's actually a bigger likelihood that, undeniably, we're going to start having conversations about abortion care in Canada. Our politics, our pop culture, our news are so enmeshed with the United States, but I don't think that Canadians should be afraid to have this debate because there's research that shows that, actually having this debate leads to increased support in abortion rights and in abortion care. So I think we actually need to go beyond talking about abortion rights in Canada, talking about access, talking about areas in the country where access is more limited, like rural areas, like the Maritime provinces. And I also would push people to talk about things that are more largely associated to reproductive justice. So childcare, for example, this is going to be a really big issue for women, for reproductive justice in the coming years. And so I think that this is actually an opportunity for those who support abortion access to have these really important conversations, not only about abortion care, but about, other issues that kind of fit into this reproductive justice kind of framework.
And finally, I just wanted to ask you, in terms of something that I know you have been watching with this, was it sort of expected that this may be happening in the near future, given the way that we've seen the balance shift on the U.S. top court?
Yes, absolutely. Also, we've seen this happening and percolating at the state level in the United States for a very long time. So states have been very, very effective. Obviously not all states, but some states very effective at actually shutting down concrete access. So it's important to talk about abortion rights. It's important to talk about Roe v. Wade and how that remakes the landscape of abortion politics in the U.S. But it's also important to understand that abortion rights have tangibly been under attack in many American states for the last 40 years. And so, through other pieces of legislation, TRAP legislation, which is legislation that targets abortion clinics, the movement has been very effective at shutting down clinics and shutting down access. And so, this has really been a long time coming, both in terms of the remaking of the Supreme Court, but also in terms of, what has been happening at the state level.
We appreciate your time and your thoughts on this important topic today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That is Kelly Gordon. She is an assistant professor of political science at McGill University. Thank you.